So the idea is that you've got Gafgarin, right? And he grows up poor on the streets. And what do we know about Gafgarin? We know he's confident. We know he's driven. He's very driven. It doesn't talk about it much, but he's also handsome, or he was before the scar. And he's a bit rugged in a sense because he's from the streets, right? Like there's a very common folk grain in him, like, and he's aware of it, right? He's very self-aware. And so it's actually his self-awareness, because if you've played the game, he doesn't talk like he's from the streets, does he? You know, he talks like he reads too much, like he reads books all the time or something. Like he almost talks like a technical manual. And the reason he does that is because he views his intelligence as his only real value, because it's the one thing that he's always been able to treat as a currency socially. So this is Gafgarin's self-perceived strength, is his intelligence, right? And so because of his weakness of self-awareness, that manifests in his speech patterns. So now we're starting to kind of see under the hood of who Gafgarin is, right? So he's confident because he knows that he's got what it takes to survive. He's driven because he doesn't. This ties in here too, right? So because he's confident and because he's self-aware and he knows he's intelligent, because of these things, he's driven to pursue things, right? So we're going to count this as a plus. So he's very driven as a result of these things, right? Like he's driven to do more. This is just a perk, right? That he happens to be handsome. But also with the confidence and the ruggedness, it's, you know, like you know, the ladies like him. Like he's well enough. But because he's so driven and because he's worried about his intelligence, he's not like a ladies' man or anything like that. Like he's almost like not even really aware of this because he's so intent on the one thing that he believes people want from him. Right? And so, and the ruggedness is just comes from his experience. Right? So this is who we've got here. And he's also very independent. And this is something like there's traits that he and the main character Merrick share. Right? They're both very independent for differing reasons. Independent? Is that what it is? Whatever. You get it. But he's very independent. And so to me, this screams somebody who would inadvertently ignore people close to them. Right? So now we've got two friends. Okay, so this is where we get into some stuff, right? So why would these two friends be so cool with Gafgarin? All right? Now, I know from personal experience that when you come from living on the streets and stuff like that, that the people you suffer with, the people that you share vices with, so as to not be cryptic, I'm just going to say it, right? Like, the people that stay in the room with you when the lights are shut off, the people that have to, like, that sleep on your couch or you sleep on their couch, the people who you do the same, like, you know, like your drug, I call it the drug buddy effect. Right? Like the people that you suffer with and that you go into the darkness with, it's very, very easy to feel connected to people in those times and in those places. I'm actually right now, like it's just now coming to me, I'm thinking of that song by Rihanna. What's that where she's like, we found love in a hopeless place? Like that song. Like I'm pretty sure that song's about heroin. Like, and they were like hooked on heroin and they like found love or something like that. But believe it or not, I'm not saying that people should go out and try this, but it is an effect of suffering that you draw close to others. So the very first thing that I'm thinking of here is that they suffered together at some point in time. That they were on the streets together, and that they all had nights where they were hungry. They all had nights where they were like, beaten or wounded or hurt, and like they took care of each other. And that's a bond that a lot of people don't understand. And so that lends a lot of credence, like a lot of credibility to our link here, right? But I don't feel like it's quite enough. Like, people have their own survival mechanisms, right? And people can, perhaps not necessarily on purpose, but they can tend to be fickle. And so we throw each other under the bus more often than we should. So I can't say that this is enough, right? But now, if we say that one of them was actually in love with them, then that explains a lot, right? Because the heart wants what the heart wants, and we do dumb stuff for the people that we're drawn to. But that leaves us with the other friend. Who are they? And what are their motivations? Why did they do it? Now, the first idea that comes to mind is that perhaps this one loved this one. But, and it would be an interesting kind of lesson, right? Because the idea is that this one loved Gafgarin, but Gafgarin never noticed, right? And then this one loves this one, but this one never notices, right? And that happens a lot in life. But I don't know if that's a good way to go, because we're kind of already doing that with Gafgarin and Milena, right? So, like, Gafgarin loves Milena, but I guess it's not entirely the same, because Milena has a time when she considers Gafgarin, and they actually do get together at one point. But then she chooses Lysander. So she doesn't return his affection, and he, in a last-ditch effort to prove that he loves her, resurrects her with the power of the phoenix. Caw-caw! And that, in turn, starts him on his path to, bad stuff. Right? And so I feel like it would be like, this is legit, right? Like, she likes him, but he doesn't know because he's so busy liking her, and he almost gets there. It's not quite the same, but he almost gets there, and then she just decides at the last minute, like, no, like, this is the one for me. So she shuts him down, kind of stuff, and then he has to later deal with the fact that he, wasted all this time, when this person was here all along, right? So that feels pretty impactful and poignant. But if I do it again, it starts to feel kind of watered down, right? Like, it's like, oh my God, like, an onion has layers, but come on, It's like the inception of character building. So let's shelve that idea. Like, we're not going to do that. So what else can we say is going on between them? Okay, so now this is just me and my philosophies, right? Life is about dualities. Twos. You got light, you got dark, you got love, you got hate, you got energy, matter, fucking hot, cold, water, fire, okay, all that stuff. So we know that one big driving force for people is love, right? And then there's a lot of different kinds of love, right? There's brotherly love. Then you can start breaking it down. But this is getting into the whole, I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but Eros and Thanatos. Right? Love and death. Love and death. But not just love, right? Eros is a very specific kind of love in ancient Greek, because there's beauty and then there's eros. I don't know, was it like Plato or somebody? I can't remember who. Somebody smarter and older than me was talking about the nature of beauty and art and what it means. They said that beauty is the recognition of what we're missing in ourselves. So, and you can see this in everything from the form of Michelangelo's David to, like, you know, modern gym bro culture, right? Where men admire other men's appearances, right? Like your muscles or your form, because it's not because, you know, they're like, they think you're hot or something like that, or they're like, you know, sexually attracted to you, but because deep down we all desire health and strength, and like, as you know, as guys, like, you know, and virility, you know what I mean? And so you see it in another and you recognize the hard work and you know what kind of work it takes to do it. So you have this innate appreciation for it because you yearn for that thing deep within your soul, right? Like, we all want to be healthy and you know, like just healthy, like whatever that looks like for you, you want it. You know what I mean? And so for a lot of guys, you know, you might think that a healthy male specimen is beautiful, but here's the thing, right? Like that sounds weird because the English language is weird. There's a difference between beauty and eros. And so it's very easy to get stuff like arousal or attraction confused with the perception of beauty. So that being said, like I'm also saying, so like eros and thanatos are your two driving forces in mortal life. Because if I can quote someone else from a more modern time, you have survival and replication. Everything we do in life, everything, can be boiled down to a motivation between survival and replication. Survival, right? Whether that means, you know, you're living in a house, whether that means you avoid somebody swinging a knife at you, whether that means that you're trying to get your mind right for some mental health, you know, survival, just the day-to-day needs of everything we know, like, right? Your survival, your replication, you know, your ability to attract a mate, to fall in love, to find, you know, to be perceived as attractive, to not come off as threatening, to be likable. You know, the ability to replicate yourself, your experiences and your wisdom and everything about you, right? Like these are two big driving instincts, right? And all this is a switched up and modern way of saying eros and thanatos. And you will find this driving force is an instinct of mortality itself. This isn't just people. This isn't like human psychology. This is true of people, cats, dogs, elephants, squirrels, mice, rats, all of us. Those of us who live and die are driven by eros and thanatos. Survival, replication, love, death, right? And so now, like, I know that seems like, you know, you're kind of overly reducing and boiling it down, but that's where language comes into play and context and things, right? So, like, what's thanatos, right? What can we attach to thanatos? Anger, hatred, jealousy, right? What can we attach to eros? Love, compassion, right? So, if we take that idea and we expand upon it for our character building, so this character would be driven by eros. So it only feels so to do this is to double down on eros, right? After we were already dealing with eros here. So it just feels natural to me to play around with some thanatos. So if she's driven by love, we can't say that this guy's driven by hate, because he sacrifices himself for Gafgarin eventually. So it can't be hate, but it still needs to be, when you think in these sort of terms, you would say the aggressive or masculine, right? And in these sort of terms, you would think of this as the, not the passive, not like aggressive, passive, but I shouldn't even say aggressive. I should say assertive, right? So when you're thinking in these terms, you have the assertive or the masculine, and then you have the, not subversion, not, what's the word I'm looking for? That which takes in and nourishes or cares for. That which is asserted upon, but not just asserted upon, takes what is asserted and transforms it, right? Like that's the key to that whole concept. Is it's not just that this isn't passive, right? It's not aggressive passive. It's assertion and what is asserted upon, and then the mixture between them is like an alchemy, right? And so whatever's asserted is then nourished, and whatever's nourished is the result, right? And this is like a very old world philosophy for how a lot of stuff works in the universe, right? You even see it in like, child rearing, right? The male asserts into the female takes him in, grows and nourishes the embryo, and then you got the baby. Right? And so your result is the little baby. And then you've got likewise, and now you can get more abstract with this too, right? Like, so if I assert, like, so we're talking love and violence, right? So like, what if I assert violence, right? I've asserted energy onto the matter of a thing, right? So the energy and force of my impacts are being received and asserted upon by the fleshy tissue and matter of my body, right? And my body absorbs those impacts and then reacts to them by bruising, right? And so the kind of reaction there of the, assertive masculine and the transformative feminine is to go through this little alchemical process and bring me pain, right? And so, like I said, like there's obviously holes in this theory, like trying to apply it to like everything in the universe. You know what I mean? But you can see how somebody might come to this conclusion if they sit there thinking long enough, right? Like it makes sense to a degree, and so it becomes useful, and it does have its uses, right? Like right here. So like what we're trying to do to characters, right? So it doesn't have to be a hate. It just has to be, if we're talking in those terms, right? Then this character wants something from Gafgaren. This character wants something asserted upon them. They want to be given something. They want to take something from Gafgaren and nourish it, right? It's like whether it's emotions or love or respect or you know what I mean, or like they actually have a relationship or family, like whatever. Like this character's driven by a need for Gafgaren's assertion, right? Like to be like they're not. So this character, like the first thing that's kind of coming to my mind here, if I'm trying to do this, is maybe this character was a rival at one point. Like maybe they weren't friends all the time. And then maybe it's the rivalry that makes them friends, right? And so perhaps, like, because obviously these two characters are competent magic users to be like the right and left hands of someone like Gafgaren, right? So it would make sense that one of them might be just as good as he is. Maybe even a little better. Right? And so maybe the sacrifice, maybe it's not that they both sacrifice themselves for him. Maybe this character does. Maybe they sacrifice themselves out of love. Right? But maybe this character, while he also loves Gafgaren and their friends, like from suffering together and being close and, like both being magic users and all this stuff, right? All this shared history. Maybe this one is consumed by the curse for their own reasons, right? Maybe there was some sort of jealousy or some sort of greed or some sort of pride, right? We're talking about Thanatos here. So perhaps this character was a rival who became friends, because that happens, actually. That's really easy to happen. Like, enemies become friends. Like, one of my very first friends in America was this kid named Nick, and we got into a fight, like a fist fight, brawl, as kids, and my mom made me, like, forced me to go tattle on him to his mom, and I didn't want to do it, and she made me do it. And so we lived in these apartment buildings, right? Like, just these two big block buildings, like, facing each other over a parking lot. And his door was literally across the street from my door. Like, you could stand there and throw a ball from the inside of my house to the inside of his house if both doors were open. Like, it was just a straight shot. So there was no faking it. There's no anything, right? And I'm like, dang, man. And so I go up there and I knock on the door expecting his parents to answer, and Nick answers instead. And he's like, yo, man, what? You know, and I'm like, look, dude, I'm not, like, I don't even want to be here. This is fucking stupid. Like, my mom is making me tell your mom. And he's like, what, dude? Just tell her that, you know, you told her. And I'm like, dude, I can't look. And, like, I point over my shoulder, and my mom, like, I remember this. I remember he's in his door, all right? And he's like, dude, don't tell on me. Like, you'll get me in trouble. And I'm like, dude, you got to see this. Like, look at my mom. She's right there. And sure enough, my mom's, like, standing there with her arms crossed, like, waiting, like, did you tell on him yet? So I was like, dude, I can't. I was like, I can't. You gotta, like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't want to tell on you. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, maybe if we stand here long enough. And then I hear his parents yell. They're like, close that door. You know, they're like, oh, the air conditioning in the neighborhood, it's not free. You know? And I'm like, oh, no. And, like, there's this moment where we both were like, oh, no. And he goes, dude, if you ground me, or he said, I remember he said, if you tell on me, I'll be grounded and I won't be able to watch Nickelodeon. And cable TV was still kind of, like, new at the time. And I was like, you've got cable? And he was like, yeah, I got cable. I was like, dude, you get to watch Nickelodeon? And he was like, yeah. And he, like, he looks back into the room and he goes, dude, come in here, pretend to talk to my parents, and let's just watch Nickelodeon for a while. And so I did. And it was the start of a beautiful friendship. And we were friends ever since. Like, so, like, this kind of stuff happens in life, right? Sometimes, especially amongst men and boys, sometimes you have to test each other and figure out, like, what quality of material you're dealing with. You know what I mean? And there are things that we do in life that we do out of instinct. We don't necessarily mean to do them, and sometimes we don't even know why we're doing them. But that particular story I just told you, that was obviously, like, I don't even remember what we fought about. I honestly can't. Like, I think it was like we were playing Army Men, and we had, like, you know, little toy guns that just, like, lit up or made noises, and so it was real easy to pretend like, you know, you didn't get hit. And I think, like, I shot him or he shot me, and we were like, nuh-uh, you know, kind of stuff. And so, you know, we thought that we were liars, and so we got into a fight over it and started, you know, wailing on each other over it. And then when it came down to the point that it was like, hey, like, we obviously, like, both have, you know, the same instinct that we don't like to tattle, like, you know, we're both trustworthy people, like, blah blah blah, you know. And you start to realize that, oh, this person is, like, you know, you've tested their mettle at that point. And so it's almost easier to become friends with someone after you've had, like, an altercation of some sort with them, you know, depending on the kind of person they are. But so the idea that perhaps this guy was some sort of rival, I think, might be a pretty strong idea, right? So let's go back to what we know real quick. So we got Gagarin's Vedanta, takes place in the Nightmare, Gagarin's Mageblade, blah, power armor. So we're down here with, like, the people, right? So, well, and you know what's funny is we might not even use this in the game. You know, there's always a chance that we won't go into this, but because remember, our whole thing is we're trying to figure out what happens here, right? So we've got Gagarin arrives, he's attacked, and then it can kind of split either way, where maybe, like, somebody shows up. And the reason why I imagine it to be a female that shows up, I think, is because it gives the reader or the player, whatever you want to call them, the idea that, maybe a love interest has appeared, whether or not they actually are. But it's just, kind of human nature to be intrigued when you put, a boy and a girl in a room. And now, like, you know what? Like, I wasn't going to really say anything on it because it does keep popping into my mind. And I don't want this to be like a political thing, right? Like, but like, I mean, when it comes to this kind of stuff, man, I just feel like honesty is the best policy. You know what I mean? Like art without honesty is just censorship, right? Like, to some degree. And so the idea, the thing that's on my mind here, right, is that it's like, I'm sure somebody somewhere might see this and think, well, why does it have to be a girl, right? Like, why can't it be a guy? You know what I mean? Like a kind of thing. Like, so I'm not going to say that, like, that's like, no, that's not possible. But like, the thought has occurred to me, right? Because like, if you go that route, right, let's say that Gaff Garen, who's a male and obviously into, lady bits, and then you introduce into the storyline a male love interest, right? Well, there's a lot to unpack there at that point, because my first question, right? My first and most important question is, what story does it tell? Right? Like, that's all I care about. I hope nobody takes this the wrong way. I don't give two shits about representation, or like, I don't even know what minority character means. Like, I don't understand these terms. The story, the lesson, the arc, this is what it's about, right? And so if we were to do this, then I have to ask myself some questions, right? Like, what does it add to the story? And now immediately, like, as a straight male myself, the first thing that comes to mind, I can't help it, my first instinct is like compassion and empathy, right? To some degree. And so since I'm trying to think of who this character is, I'm kind of like in their shoes right now. And so if I put myself in the shoes of someone in this situation, I imagine that there would be some sort of like sadness or tension between them. Unless I just say that, like, Gaff Garen suddenly, one way or another, then there's a barrier between them, right? And now that's what intrigues me, is that barrier. That's where I think there's a story with something like that, right? Is, what is that barrier? And what does it do to them as people and their relationship with one another, right? Like, does this person, like what kind of love style do they have? Like, are they aggressive with it? Are they trying to jump the barrier? Are they trying to jump the fence? You know what I mean? Like, is Gaff Garen like, ah? Or are they like, kind of passive? And so like everything they do tries to like kind of bounce off. Or do they not do anything at all? Every time they're about to do something, they turn around, right? And they go that way. Every time they're about to do something, they change their mind. They're going to go this way because they're afraid of what might happen, right? Or like, what do I say here? Like, so, because these things, like, because of the way that I write, I tend to write things that seem realistic to me, as far as like real as in people real, right? And so this stuff happens. This happens. This is a totally natural thing to happen, right? Like, you have one person who's into one thing, another person who's maybe not into that thing, and this person wants to like share something with them, but they know that whatever they want to share might not be received, and that's not just with like same-sex relationships. It's like with like a lot of things, like maybe you like a TV show someone hates, maybe you like an actor someone hates, maybe you like a sport someone hates, you know what I mean? Like, and you just you're like, man, I wish I could talk football with this guy, but he hates football. Like, it's just like, and then there's varying degrees of it, and so I can imagine that there is a story here of what happens to a heart that can't give what it wants to give, you know what I mean? So like the whole idea of like putting something like this in there is not at all beyond me, you know what I mean? Like I believe that it's a thing that like man, you could tell some stories with this. Like, if you could really get in the shoes of a character like that and make someone understand the angst, right? And like the kind of sorrow of an unrequited love, and not even like unrequited like there's something you could change about yourself, but like just truly and utterly unrequited, right? Like, or that's if, if he's not into it. Like, because I feel like in the sake of the story, like that would be the stronger story, right? Like, I wouldn't want to just be like, oh no, Gaff Garen's actually, he swings both ways. Like, it would be like there's no story there. Then that's just, oh well, they don't like me. They wanted somebody else more. But the idea that he's not like that and this person is, there's a story there, I think. You know what I mean? And so like there is that idea, right? That it's like, well, what if like, why's it got to be a girl? Well, just because right now, the way that things are playing out, that's, if I want to introduce someone who might possibly be a love interest, I don't think that the average reader would get the same impact if a male showed up and Gaff Garen was a male, right? Because your first instinct is to think that someone just showed up. But when you put two things, like if you already knew that Gaff Garen was gay, then if a guy showed up, you might be like, oh, is he gonna, like, is that somebody, but there hasn't been anything said to that. Like, if you were to ask a player, well, Gaff Garen's straight, right? And as far as the story is concerned, like, he is. So, like, you see what I'm saying? It's like, so it's not a matter of like, oh, well, it's got to be like this because, of some sort of tradition or whatever. It's because that this is what I believe will evoke a sense in a player, right? Or in a reader or in something like that. And sometimes I'm trying to invoke the wrong thing too. Like if I want to misdirect, like I may do something like this to evoke an idea in someone to try to trigger a response and then twist it, right? At the last second. And then be like, oh, okay. And I know that I've been able to do that successfully a couple times because I've watched streams where people come to a part in my writing where they're like, oh, is this going to happen? Or, oh, I've seen this before. And then they go, oh. And they're like pleasantly surprised afterwards. So I know that it worked, right? And so like, so if you're one of the people who's asking yourselves like, like, well, why can't it like be a guy kind of thing? Well, it's because the reason why I haven't like, really thought about, well, I've thought about it, but like the reason why I haven't like, I don't have anything like that in there right now is also another reason too. Because if I were to write a character from the perspective of a gay male, I feel like that right now I wouldn't be able to do it justice. I think that I would write them like a female character, to be honest, especially if they were in pursuit of a love interest, because I don't know, like, and like I haven't had enough time around, like I've had gay friends, but like I haven't been around them in intimate situations. Like I haven't gotten to see them like pursue someone or something like that. Like I've seen a lot of guys and like straight guys and girls pursue each other, right? Like I've taken part in it. Like I've pursued girls have pursued me. I've seen girls pursue other guys. I've seen other guys pursue girls. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's something that's been a part of my life experience for so long that I feel confident in attempting to step into the shoes of someone else, right? The things I know. And so, or I don't want to say the things I know, but the things I've observed, right? And so I don't know if I could write a character like that. Like I sure would be intrigued, like, because this idea of the story that would be like, because to me, like sometimes writing a character is like trying to understand people, right? You're trying to understand your character as you're developing them. And I'm all about understanding people. And so I think it's an interesting idea, but for our purposes here, I don't know if it'll work because now I've suddenly introduced a whole new element into like the overall story and theme, right? And I'm going to have to like, what's like, this would create tension between them and possibly conflict. Like, how do I do that without just making the character seem like a, like, kind of like, just like, almost like the gay guy version of what people accuse a lot of like the princess stuff to be, right? Where it's like they're a character who's just there for the sake of like absorbing the impact of something, or like, you know what I mean? Like I'd like to give that character a little more than that, right? And I don't know how to do it just yet. So that, like, in case anybody was wondering, like that's what's up with that. So the idea that like somebody comes in here, we're trying to figure out what went on here. We're going in here, and right, so I kind of like, I don't know, sometimes I think of a thing and it feels like boom, it locks in and I'm like, that's it, that's perfect, right? Like I like the idea of one of them being like a love interest. This one, the rivalry thing, like we may develop that further, because I almost feel like there could be something between them too. Maybe they're siblings, right? Maybe it's like brother sister or something like that, or I don't know, like something that ties them together, right? But anyways, so we know all this about Gafgaren, right? And so all right, so we've developed 2 prototype characters, right? Now this guy's got a lot going on because we don't quite know what we're doing yet. This one might seem kind of shallow, but that's only because we've narrowed down a focused motivation for this character, right? And I mean, if you've lived life, you've got to know that there are times when this is motivation enough. You know what I mean? Like when you want something, or when you want someone, and sometimes you can't talk yourself out of it, even when you know better. So I find that motivation is a strong motivation. You just got to be careful not to make it like your whole story about that, right? Like where everybody's got that motivation. So let's go back to, all right. So now we've got these characters off to the side, right? We've got we like I said, we might not even use them, but they're there. And this has been like the whole process for Neverspring, right? Like I'll think everything out ahead of time and kind of have like all these little side stories and all these little things and stuff there because it gives life to the characters, in my opinion. And some of the stuff may never even make it to screen. People might never even see this stuff. Let's see. So we got these 2 guys up here if we need them, and they're prototype developed. So now knowing what we know, right? So we've got Karen's places in Nightmare. So we know that he's going to have to. I feel like these will be best done in mechanics, right? The suit maintenance.